there's a juxtaposition of great quarterback play and terrible quarterback play, and it happened in Florida last night. I mean, the truth is that Florida in general, but Florida football is probably the most interesting thing out of the state of Florida since the last season of the show Cops, right? Which we always felt like was focused on things happening in Florida. But before we get to Bortles and the disaster that is Jacksonville, and before we get to Tampa and where a star is on the rise with Jameis Winston, I was watching the show yesterday, Kristine.
This show?
Yes, this show.
Okay.
And wherever you may be listening, however you may be listening to the show.
You.
I watched. Actually, I was on the show yesterday, but I was watching the show at some point yesterday, and there was something that Jay Glazer said, and it's always, or Jay Glazer interviewed Tom Brady, and something Tom Brady said, and it's always fascinating to me how, look, to the victors generally go the spoils, right? When you win, the narrative changes dramatically. I think Tom Brady, I know he's the most accomplished quarterback of all time. Look, if you asked me, when you asked, I think, people in the NFL, or you asked a lot of people who know and cover football, there'd be a healthy debate as to if you're going to play a game this Sunday, who you would most want to be your quarterback. Would it be 12? Some people would stick to Montana. I would go with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, to me, is the best at playing the position I've ever seen. He's not as accomplished as Tom Brady. And if you want to simply go by rings, that's fair. You can do that. That's how you can formulate your argument. It's a strong argument. My argument would be, tell me a box to which Aaron Rodgers doesn't check. He's played well in big games. He's lost him fine. I don't want to even get into the Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the most accomplished quarterback of all time and the most accomplished quarterback currently playing in the National Football League, and he's in the conversations of the greatest to ever be a signal caller. But isn't it fascinating how we kind of we've changed, we remember things differently because of the fourth quarter, and I guess rightfully so, right? One of my issues with Colin's take on LeBron James and about how he shouldn't be accountable for the NBA Finals is we throw out the stats, we throw out the numbers, and we're like, well, hey, who was better in the fourth quarter? Well, that's not really important. Yes, it is. That's always been what's important. Only now for LeBron, it's not important. So, look, if you want to say that Tom Brady's been clutch, he has. He didn't make the interception against the Seahawks, although he did lead his team on a touchdown drive the possession before. Tom Brady did lead his team on the greatest comeback we've ever seen in the biggest sporting event in American sports last year, coming back from 28-3 to win the Super Bowl. We did see that. That did happen. He is responsible for that. But he said this to Jay Glazer, and I kind of chuckled. Take a listen.
I feel like I've worked hard to get to this point. So going into my 18th year, I've learned a lot. I've had the experiences, played the defense, played in the big games. And I still feel like I can perform at a really high level. So I think now this is the time to really start having fun. I mean, every time I go on the field, I feel like, all right, well, I know what to do. I know how to do it. I know where to go with the ball. And, football is in some ways easier now for me than it ever was because, it's just, I've been doing it longer. I've had the experience and, hopefully that experience can pay off. In fairness, he's right. The more you do something, the easier it is. I mean, I can tell you, first time I ever sat in for Colin at the other place, the first time I sat in here, there's nerves, right? You're big stage, I'm working with you, working with all the guys, you want to perform. And the more you do it, the more you feel comfortable. And you multiply that tenfold when you've been playing the position as well as he's been playing position in the NFL and won 5 Super Bowls and competed in all of the other Super Bowls as well. And you start to go of course, he's seen seemingly everything. But let's not, he acts like it's easier than it used to be. The game is simpler. And look, I watched the Super Bowl. First half, he was bad. He did throw a pick 6. And while we want to remember only that they came from behind, if the Atlanta Falcons had just taken a knee, if they had just run the football into the ground and not fumbled it, made one field goal up 28-3 after Julio Jones's catch, this narrative changes dramatically. Dramatically. I'm not talking about is he the greatest of all time narrative. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, think about how we view the New England Patriots camp and Tom Brady's longevity. Now you have people saying look, he could go forever. 40 years old,
right? He only threw 2 interceptions all season last year. He played in 12 games. They were 11-1 on the season. Why couldn't he continue to play? Because he's playing at a ridiculously high level. When the truth is, as accomplished as he is, as experienced as he is, he did not look good at all. He was rattled. And I will grant you, they didn't have Rob Gronkowski, who's his best target. He's one of the elite players in the NFL. He didn't have him for that entire game, and that would cause any quarterback to be a little bit scattered with where they wanted to go with the football. But if you want to tell me that I've seen everything, I'm better now, it's easier than it used to be, well, why wasn't it easy against the Atlanta Falcons? Or if you even go back to when they played the Houston Texans, like if the Texans had any sort of quarterback play, that would have been a hell of a game. He threw 2 picks against the Texans. He was, by his own estimation, bad. And so let's not misremember that Tom Brady in the first half of the Super Bowl had a 61.5 rating, threw for 184 yards. They did have 10 first downs, but he wasn't great, and by probably his own evaluation, wasn't even really good. They were out of rhythm, out of sorts, and it took a drive at the end of the third quarter and a lot of help by the Atlanta Falcons and some help by the defense in order to give them more opportunities, and he was incredible in the fourth quarter. 10 first downs in the fourth quarter alone. But the point is, how we completely change our evaluation of where he is in his career, his longevity, based simply upon what happened in that fourth quarter, when if we look at the previous 7 quarters, you might actually have a lot more concerns about Brady's present day, Brady's future, and how quickly Jimmy Garoppolo becomes the next quarterback of the Patriots. And the one guy who doesn't get caught up in that just happens to be his head coach in Bill Belichick. Belichick knows exactly what he's doing. You're not fooling him by saying all the right things. You're not fooling him by what you do in the fourth quarter. What you do in quarters 1 through 3 leaves anybody to have pause because he's never been mobile. He's even more immobile. And if you can get to Tom Brady with 4, you can make him look like a fairly average quarterback in comparison to how great he looks when he has time, when he's on his spot.